Hello and welcome to another top grades made easy video with poetry comparisons. The key thing is to understand the poet's purpose. Let's get started. So let's go to Charge of the Light Brigade. We already know that exposure is going to be the top comparison possibly, but let's have a look at the other possible comparisons. So purpose that we've got for this poem: to support patriotic propaganda, to promote the cult of the warrior and the idea of death as a noble sacrifice. But as I hinted at earlier, also to hint at the war being wrong. So if you go and watch my Charge of the Light Brigade video, you'll see how subtle this is, and it's also connected to the idea of the structure of the poem, so it's going to be a really useful revision point. It's made to be memorable, as we discussed, and it explores the use of sound in the poetry. Well, it links well to Kamikaze, which also has the same theme, that patriotic idea that life is worth sacrificing. It also glorifies death. It portrays a culture that puts patriotism at its heart, celebrates the warrior and the sacrifice in order for a ruler, for the king in this case. In Charge of the Light Brigade and the Emperor in Japan. However, Kamikaze also shows that war creates a sense of nihilism. It's a protest. The nihilism in the Light Brigade is actually seen as noble. There's but to do and die. So although life is pointless in the sense that you're just going to die, it's not pointless because that death has a patriotic point. Although you can flip that, of course, and say actually they died for nothing. It was a pointless charge. It didn't succeed in changing the war in any way. They just died for no gain. So this is where we get the nihilism idea. And they both explore the importance of memory. So Kamikaze is also obviously about the memory of the father and family memory, whereas here we're talking about a national collective memory. And what we've got is Tennyson as a poet laureate, the representative of Queen Victoria, appointed to this role as poet laureate, and his job is to write poetry that's going to change the national mood and change the national memory. And of course it does. We're still reading it now. So I'm totally happy with these comparisons. Very detailed. I know I'm going to smash the grade 7. We can look at Remains, which is to expose the after effects of war on individuals who participated in it, and that's a contrast here because the after effect is death. And also to make a political point that soldiers are not looked after and make us sympathise with the soldiers. So again, this is written with the opposite intention, so it's a contrasting poem to Charge of the Light Brigade. Obviously I've got Exposure, which I've just been through, and you know why that is my favourite, especially as it's written before 1918. And then finally I can compare it to War Photographer, which is all about the damaging effect of war on those who report on it. And this is quite a sophisticated point because Tennyson got his source material from the Times newspaper. And therefore he is, if you like, reporting second-hand on the war, and I think that damages him as a poet. So he's having to write about the war in a way that ultimately he doesn't agree with. This is a really sophisticated point. You'll only understand it probably if you watch my video on Charge of the Light Brigade. And this invites us to question the role of the media in perpetuating the idea of war. So although this only has 2 points, it is a really sophisticated comparison. So I'd be quite tempted to deviate from my pre-1918 plan, and I could quite happily write about that one. Now we have 4 comparisons from Charge of the Light Brigade. Charge of the Light Brigade is written to support patriotic propaganda, so this is a contrast to Exposure. It has the opposite purpose. It wants to promote the cult of the warrior and death as a noble sacrifice. So if you like, Exposure is a literary conversation where Wilfred Owen is writing a reply to this kind of patriotism, a reply to this poem. But in the Charge of the Light Brigade, there are also subtle hints that the war is wrong. This is a really sophisticated point. You need to watch my video on Charge of the Light Brigade to go through that. I'm not going to go through it here. Interestingly, Charge of the Light Brigade is written at a time when people routinely memorized poems, and so he's absolutely obsessed with the sound of his poem and writes it in order to be read aloud. And that's similar to Wilfred Owen, who is also really fascinated by the sounds he can create. So that's going to be a structure point, and therefore Charge of the Light Brigade is going to be a top comparison to use. And remember, tactically, I want to revise the ones that are written before 1918. So even though I preferred my first comparison to Kamikaze, I'm actually going to find that being able to write about structure and form is going to be easier writing about Charge of the Light Brigade. So this is going to be my go-to comparison. And if you'd like to see some essays comparing poems, check out the video appearing on the left, and on the right, videos showing you how to use the FOSS method, which gets you the top grade every time.